Tā, nu lūk, beidzot, mēs dodamies izzināt visu, ko dokumentālā pasaule mums spēj sniegt Eiropā un pasaulē, un kādas ir mūsu iespējas izlausties starptautiskā arēnā. Jo kurš gan mākslinieks negribētu savu darbu redzēt Luvrā, vai ne? Bet dokumentālajā kino atzītākais filmu festivāls ir IDFA, dokumentālais kino festivāls Amsterdamā, kur ilgus gadus festivālam filmas atlasīja un vērtēja Martinjs de Pas, kas ir kļuvis par dokumentālā kino ekspertu un konsultantu. Es domāju, mēs varētu visi aplaudēt Martinju de Pas.
Thank you.
Hi, it's very nice to see you here in Latvia. We also know that you are you're a part of a jury of Latvian National Film Award, Lielais Kristaps. Have you seen anything already?
Actually, I've seen most of the films already.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is it any good?
It's wonderful. It's really good. It's a fantastic introduction for I've never been to Latvia before, never been to Riga before. So for me, it's an amazing start.
But you have never been in Riga before, but did you know any Latvian films already before this?
Of course. We have one of the masters, if not the masters, here in the back, Mr. Ivar Šelekis. So I'm so honored to be even in his presence. And many others, yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's also Lithuanian and Estonian films, because I feel that there is a connection even with Finland.
And well, before you tell us about this connection, which is very interesting, can you tell us how would you describe what is a documentary film? What makes for example, if I took a very long video in my pocket with my telephone, what could make it a documentary film?
Wait, that's a big question, of course, and there's so many kinds of films. There's personal films, there's journalistic films, there's poetic films. But what I think is most important is great curiosity, and that you kind of make something that has more layers, so it's not just a one-dimensional reportage or something that is maybe super easy to understand. I think good documentaries are a bit ambiguous, you know, you can see two sides of a coin, and that it makes life more complex in a sense. A good documentary doesn't make it easier, it makes it more complex, and that I think in the end that gives you wisdom as an audience.
Yeah. And what about this, returning to this, what you said, that Baltic films have like maybe some kind of connection in between them, the themes of movies. What is there anything that you could point out, what we all talk about, like as a region?
I think you're extremely good in taking what may not be so spectacular from the start, which is life, you know, living, working, and take that and then turn that into something very special. So, which I think is wonderful, and a good literature can do the same. It's what you think is normal is not normal, and that's kind of the beauty of, I think, a lot of Baltic and Latvian films.
And when thinking about the idea of making a movie or starting the first documentary, I think there are two ways usually people see the idea, how the idea could come to them. Either they actively search for it always and they're actively searching, or they think that the idea or the answer will come itself. How do you think? What would be the best approach when finding the first story?
Of course, it could also be a bit different if you're only starting out. Often people take their own life or their personal life as a starting point, which could be great, but there's a lot of films about grandmothers and grandfathers and parents and uncles and stuff. And in the end, not all of them are interesting for everyone in the world. But I think it's important that you know yourself and that you know what you like, and maybe that you manage to get a particular viewpoint and particular perspective that is a bit original, that is new, that is fresh. But of course, you have to know yourself as a good director, filmmaker. You have to kind of know yourself before you know the world, or try to know the world and engage with the world.
Yeah, that's very important. I know a lot of my peers who I come from fine arts background, and they think that they are going to make like big art and everything, but they haven't lived yet. Like they study all the time, or they're doing, they're working at cafes or something. What do you think? Is education in film vitally important?
Not vitally important in some cases. Of course, it's great to learn the craft, because it's a craft and you can learn a lot. But as you said, it's also really good to be curious and to just do shit. Do an awful lot of shit. Travel, see the world, see a lot of films. Don't sleep, live life.
Very important, very important. And let's take, we are all living life, we are all watching movies, we all have maybe something that we want to say, but we don't have any money. We don't have no money, and we have tried to apply to fundings and stuff, and no one is giving us money. Are there any things that we should, that would be super important to give some kind of money to? Is there a segment or is there a part of filmmaking that you should definitely have some money on? Whatever money, but you should have some money on it.
Or maybe find friends who have cameras and sound equipment and editors. And so it's always about people, you do it together. It's not something you totally do by yourself. So that would be maybe my advice, is just start a network or start a film club, or, get people together that also are in the business of trying to make films and go from there. And also, maybe it's good to write down what you think or what you feel about a film and even publish it, Don't be shy and sit back in your room, but just engage with the world, with the film world, and then often things will lead from one thing to another. And slowly you can kind of grow into becoming a filmmaker or a producer or an editor or a cinematographer. So I'm not really I don't really know the formal education system here in Latvia. Maybe you can tell me about that later. But so film school is of course super good, but just do stuff. That's it. Yeah, it's a very, very straightforward answer. But connect and make mistakes. The more mistakes you make, the more you learn. Right.
But when, for example, when you are watching a movie, and I believe that this is all very important and nice, but probably someone will be thinking, oh my gosh, okay, well, I will make my film without any money, but it will show, it will be, I don't know, bad quality, bad sound, all is going to go shit. Should I do this anyway? Can you really see if a film did or did not have any money for it when you see the outcome of it?
Well, actually, often it's really good, because of course the technical equipment is amazing these days. So if you really try, you can make something pretty decent on a good phone. So I don't think you should hide always behind lack of money. Of course, you should try to get funding at one point if you want to be a professional filmmaker or producer. But it's more about drive and commitment and passion and curiosity than anything else.
Yeah, well, you yourself, you have 20 and more year of experience as a juror of many film festivals and advisor and consultant. And taking all this experience, speaking about the contemporary documentaries, are there any gaps that should be filled? the topics that you think everyone should be talking about, but no one is talking about? Are there any tendencies?
Well, I think there is a bit of a danger that a lot of filmmakers are censoring themselves because politically, of course, you cannot touch this or that, and there's a lot of fear nowadays, not only in our craft and art, but everywhere. So I'm not sure, like a film like Collective by Alexander Nanau 5 years ago, which got an Oscar nomination as well and won the European Film Prize, which is about corruption in Romania. You know, I'm not so sure if public broadcasters are still touching that. Maybe films about people changing gender, maybe that's getting harder because there's so much political opposition to that. So I think it's even more important to keep making films like that, because I think we have to fight it and show and reveal and things that should be revealed. And of course, to me, film is a big empathy machine. So you learn about other people and their difficulties. We're all in a little bubble, and that's the great thing about cinema and documentary cinema. You can get out of that bubble by seeing something that is extremely moving. So there's this film from Norway. It's on Netflix. You can see it. It's called Ibelin, about a gamer a young boy who was very sick and he had a progressive disease, and he would die at one point. And he was gaming all the time, and his parents didn't really know. Maybe you've seen it. Parents didn't really know what he was doing, and because he was always gaming, but they didn't really know what happened. And after his death, they found out that he was connected to the world in a massive scale. Thousands of people adored him, and he helped them, and he advised them on it. And he was a kid, and he had so much wisdom in him. And I thought gaming was so superficial and stupid and a waste of time. And I learned something like, hey, not necessarily so. This guy, his only way, because he was stuck to the house, was connecting through his gaming with other people all around the world. So, I mean, it teaches me something every day, films I see, which is great for me. I love it.
Yeah, that's inspiring. And but what about when you saw your profession? You have done this work of curating film festival programs. How is this, like, the process of it? How are you? Are there rules, or this is only the juror's subjective opinion? Are they moved by the movie, or something like that, or? What's the process there?
It's very much a team effort. So, of course, as a programmer, you can have some influence. It depends a bit for what festival you work. Sometimes it's very much a collective effort, and you watch the films together, at least at some point, if they're going through some phases, like pre-phases of selection. Some festivals are a bit more individualistic, and there's programmers that really say, okay, I want this film and that film and that film. So it depends a bit, but in the end, of course, it's good to talk about films and discuss choices. So at ITFA, we would do it with 3 people. In the end, you would have a long list of 20 films for a certain competition, and in the end, you end up with 12. You take 8 off, and maybe those out of these 8, some of them will go in another section. So not necessarily the competition, but you would still want to screen it. And then maybe there is a bit of a thing. People sometimes think that if you submit a film to a festival, that people will not see it because you're not well known or you don't have a famous producer or sales agent. But that's really not the case, in my experience at least. Because festivals also want to discover new talent, and they're really happy when they find a person who's very talented just by a wild submission. So, I mean, every film that is submitted, at least to where I've been working in the past, is seen with great care and attention.
Oh, that's great, because I think many young directors think that I will send my movie, no one will watch it. And yeah, all right. Well then, but then your other the other thing that you do professionally, you're a consultant. And how is it in your job? When do you come into the process as a consultant? Do you consult the first idea? Do you consult already the material, black material, or how do you call it in English? Yeah, black cut, or yeah,
The rough cut?
rough cut. Yes.
Yep. It could be in any stage of production. It's not that I'm part of the idea. I think that should be developed already. But I can help out with grant writing. So, you know, when you're writing a proposal for funding, I can help out. Often, for example, there's too much contextual or academic information in the grant proposals. Of course, it's sometimes important, but it's much more important that you show, that you write down in a way that you can kind of see the film when you read it. You know, that it kind of sets your imagination on fire. And that you think, shit, this could be a short story, you know, it's fantastic. That's kind of the visual writing that's necessary to get funding, because people who read it, they don't want to know about the history of the Baltic states, but they want to know what you're going to show on the film. You know, what will we see in the end? And of course, it's important sometimes to have a bit of contextual information, but turn it down. I also see rough cuts, so I can advise from that point of view, and I kind of advise about the international appeal, because that's basically, I work totally international, always for filmmakers and producers all around the world. And of course, sometimes a film can have fantastic regional or national appeal, but not all films have that. And if you want it, then sometimes you have to cut out a person or concentrate on other things in the film that are important to be sure that you can also connect to other audiences. And last but not least, I also advise on festival distribution. So I know a lot of festivals from my past. So some festivals are great for this kind of films, other ones are good for that kind of films. So I do make endorsements, you know, I help out with some films and say, hey, festival, this is a film that's really for you, and so you could screen it or should screen it. And I'm not always successful, but at least, you know, I try it from my point of view, and I have a little bit of weight sometimes. So that's basically what I do.
And how does one find a person like you, like a consultant? Is it like through knowing you, or some, I don't know, consultant database, or there are many consultants in every country? How does it happen?
Yeah, there's different ways, of course. After 20 years of ITFA, I've been to so many festivals, so I still profit from that background that I had. But I also work for Sheffield, I work for CPH Docs, I work for Millennium Docs Against Gravity in Poland, Jihlava, etc. So it's basically, when going to festivals, you're listed as a consultant, so you can at least find me in the guest list there. But I'm also attending receptions and a little premiere and a gathering here, and yeah, I'm not too scared to be out there and talk to people I don't know yet.
That's good. And but speaking about about the content of the movie, is there anything that should absolutely not that is absolutely not made for cinema and should not be talked about, or are or is it inappropriate, or worse, boring, with no potential? Is there any topic like that? Something no one should talk about, ever?
Wow. Do you think so?
I don't know, maybe contextually.
Yeah, it's maybe more the way you handle it than the subject in advance. I've seen films, you know, about a pedophile in Czech Republic who never harassed children for real, but he had the feelings of, you know, that he want, and that's of course like, what the fuck? How? Sorry about my English here, but you think, oof, who will see that? But I think it's extremely good that you see a film like that, because those people exist. You can't just wipe them off the earth. And the guy was struggling hard with his feelings, so why not? If you have if you're a good filmmaker, even to deal with those very, very sensitive kind of topics in a very mature and interesting way.
Yeah, but when does, for example, cancel culture come in here? Topics that we shouldn't speak about or are morally inappropriate or socially inappropriate. Can one make movies about that, or is this a question about social norms, or it's just the question about the way you're presenting your idea?
I think you should follow your heart, actually. It's a simple answer, maybe, but when some people are brave enough to do something that others don't, I admire them for it. And I saw a film just a few days ago for Sheffield. I'm watching a lot of films there. I won't say the title, but it's about a young guy, 17-year-old, who wants to be a fisherman in Brittany, in the west coast of France. And he's coming from a line of family that's always been fishing. Well, fishing in Europe is not so popular any longer because there's overfishing, there's many problems, a lot of environmental problems, I know. But this guy wasn't even so likable. He was quite a bit of an asshole in the beginning of the film. But after 60 minutes, I kind of liked him and I understood him. That's the great thing about it. And then you kind of understand. He comes from hundreds of years of fishing history and culture, and suddenly he can no longer go fishing because, that's what Europe says, that's what Paris says, that's what the big power says. So it kind of shifts my view a little bit too. And maybe the film will not be screened on any broadcaster. That shouldn't ask me that question because I don't know yet. But there is shifts, of course, and what is politically correct and what isn't. But to be honest, I think it's always good when you make something with great care and a good ethical point of view. And this guy, for example, he was a bit aggressive, and at one point in the film he was getting really drunk at a festival, but they cut the scenes where he was probably nearly fighting someone or when he was on the floor vomiting. They cut that scene. So it was made in a really smart way that you don't have to see it all, you can imagine it. And still, you have to honor him as a person. So later on, there's a discussion about ethics here. So I'm sure we will touch on that subject more.
Yeah, and what would you say, like in conclusion, maybe? So what's the main purpose of documentary film as a medium? What is it?
I wouldn't say main because there's so many of them. As I said, empathy, but it's also revealing. So if it's corruption or a truth to power, hold people accountable. But it's also poetry, the poetry of life, the poetry of living together on this planet, in a family or whatever way you're doing it. So basically, it's like good literature. You get into someone's head, and then you suddenly are enriched by another view. And it could take many shapes or forms. It could be political, it could be poetic, it could be journalistic, it could be human rights issues, so many kind of different ways, but that's up to you.
Great. Well, I hope we have any questions here in the audience.
Yeah, don't be shy, please. I'd really love to hear if you have an idea or a question.
You can also ask your questions in Latvian, and we will translate it for you.
Or later at the bar, it's also fine.
Anything? Yeah, we have one question.
Yeah, it was super interesting. Thank you for expanding on this topic. And I was wondering, how did you get into consulting and also becoming a juror at so many festivals? It seems like a fascinating job, and I was just wondering how you got into it.
I moved from Amsterdam to Sweden from this festival. I worked for ITVA, and that was 5 years ago. And because my second marriage was with a Swedish woman, so for private reasons I went to Stockholm. And and then COVID started. and I didn't have work. I was 52 or 53 years old. I didn't even speak Swedish, so I was pretty mental doing that. And then I thought, why not just start your own business and start from there? So the strange thing is, it worked well for me because all film projects were on hold at the moment because of COVID, or most of them. So there was a bit of time with filmmakers and producers to ask for advice. So I was right away working a lot from zero, and I said, if you need my help, contact me, and I'll try to help you. And the same year and the year before, actually, I did some courses because I didn't know everything about didn't know all about marketing or promotion. So I did an EAV course. EAV is fantastic, still exists. You remember that maybe if you want to learn about being a producer or know about communication, promotion, etc. I did a Sources 2 course that doesn't exist any longer, but that's where I learned how to deal with filmmakers because that could be difficult. Some of them always want to stick to their guns, some don't. And I learned some tools to assess projects, which is called SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you can basically, every film or project or festival or anything, you can kind of see what's the strength, what's the weakness, what's the opportunity, and what's the threats. And on the basis of that outcome, you can write a consultancy report. So I was learning a lot that year. I was just working like that. And as I said, I've always been pretty outgoing. So I just go places and I talk and I do stuff. I make mistakes, probably quite a lot. But in the end, it's okay, So I've been a bit lucky too, maybe in my time. I started working at ITFA in 1995. Can you imagine? It's medieval times. And then it was so small, the festival, and there were only women there. There were no men working there. So I knew all about booze because I worked in a liquor store, and I was a man. And I thought that was a pretty attractive option for them, at least to have one man at the festival. So I've always worked with many, many women, by the way, and I'm really happy to see you out here because they're good, fantastic team players, often much better than men.
Great to know.
Is that an answer? Yeah.
Busfilm par Ajax faniem.
Sorry?
Is there going to be a movie about the Ajax fans, the vandalizing?
Congratulations, by the way. 1-0, fantastic. The Ajax fans, I'm not so sure. No, not that I know, actually. So.
There were two very nice episodes in Riga and Amsterdam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not so competent in football.
I know there's 2 films on football fans actually in Sweden. That's called, one is Ultras. It just premiered last week in Gothenburg. And soon there'll be a film about the club Hammarby, the biggest club in Stockholm, called the Gröna Linjen, the Green Line. So if that is of any help.
Yeah. Any other questions from the audience?
Thank you. What would be the one encouragement you would say to all of us here who are thinking about making their first movie, maybe? What's the pep talk?
The pep talk. Curiosity, hang out together, do it together. Don't try to do everything by yourself because don't be lonely, Share your loneliness with someone else at least. And just, I think I've said it before. Just do it, and of course keep evolving your project and check it with people, because it's sometimes filmmakers stick to in their own head all the time, and sometimes if you change a little bit in the film or your idea, it's suddenly much more interesting. And also talk about or check what's out there in the world. Google films about the same subject or the same location or the same protagonist, and check out what's been made already, because often that's lacking. People think they have a fantastic original idea and then they don't realize that there's basically 3 films about the same thing that are released that year. So that's of course not so handy.
Could you tell us? Oh, all right. Well, yeah. Question there. Yep.
I have a question when I see the title of the conference TikTok, and I have already the question of these platforms like TikTok and Instagram. So, do you think it's this kind of platforms they impact the documentary industry positive or negative way, and how we can use it to develop this documentary industry?
I think it would always be positive because it's just there. It exists. So you cannot undo it. So TikTok and other platforms that work on small screens and often vertical, quick message maybe, or quick this or that. But there's also creativity there. And of course, sometimes there's also fantastic films where all these social mediums are included in the film. So then there is a beautiful hybrid between documentary cinema and the new platforms, all in one, in a sense. So I'm never against it, because it would be silly to be against it, because it exists and it's a reality for so many people who use it a lot. So it's the world of today. And of course there's a lot to say about those platforms and who's got the power and stuff, but that's another discussion. So I think it's wonderful, you know, people expressing themselves.
Tell us maybe more about making mistakes, because I know that a lot of the younger generation, they feel pressured to be perfect, to have it all already at a very young age, and everyone is sharing what they're doing, and you really feel like you have fear of missing out, everything, yada yada, everyone knows that. But what about failing, and how much you can fail?
As I said, as much as possible. It's liberating, you know, it's absolutely liberating.
So you would even encourage failing?
Yes, because if you don't fail, you will never understand what it takes to not fail. It's the best teaching method. Because if you do something stupid, you feel shit and you want to do it better the next time. So you do it better next time. So don't, it's also about how you raise your kids. If you kind of raise them not to make mistakes, they become fearful, they get anxious, often they don't end up as adults that can deal with the world. You know, you have to deal with, to be honest, I'll tell you a little bit personal thing. When I was 18 or so, I felt I was raised very protectively. I was raised in a little village in the Netherlands. My parents took good care of me. I thought, fuck, I don't know shit. So I went to Australia without any money. And then I nearly was eating from the bins, and then I found a job. I kind of managed to survive. I worked in a toothpaste factory for 6 months. I worked whatever. I did the craziest stuff. But it gives you so much self-confidence to just do things that are out of your own little world. It's helped me my whole life, actually.
Yeah, that's great. But I can fail and I will fail, but where do I get the strength to try again? I think, failing, we all fail, but with usually people, they give up. But where do you find your inspiration to try again, and why trying again something that you have already failed in?
Oh, but sometimes it also takes a bit of time, of course. It's not that you fail, that you'll do it right the next week or month. It might take years. So why do you have to be perfect tomorrow? No, you don't. So it's a kind of an evolving thing. It's you still make mistakes when you're a bit older. And it's not that I'm encouraging you to make mistakes, but at least when you make mistakes, you learn something. So I'm repeating myself here.
No, that's very great, because I think that everyone here should really hear that and be encouraged by your very nice repeating of very important things.